Quick warning before we start the video. This video will dive heavily into topics such as suicide and mental health illnesses such as anxiety and depression. If at any point you find the discussion of these topics uncomfortable or you find you are not in the headspace to hear about such topics, please feel free to click off the video and come back to it another time or skip the video entirely. I understand. Your safety is what's most important to me. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. So those of you who already know me by now know that I absolutely love musicals. And if you really know me, you would know that I freaking love Dear Evan Hansen. I have this closest thing that I'll ever get to a playbill until I actually watch a show in New York, because I saw this, I believe, on tour in 2022. I have the novel, which no, I have not finished yet, and I haven't read it in forever because I am not much of a reader, but I intend to actually read this whole thing again, actually finish it this time, and eventually I will make a video on it. I have a themed bracelet and a themed necklace that I decided not to wear for this video because I felt like it didn't look well with the shirt. I didn't even realize how much Dear Evan Hansen stuff I actually had until like a couple hours ago when I was looking around for this stuff for the video. So yeah, Dear Evan Hansen is one of my all-time favorite musicals. So you can imagine my excitement in 2020, 2021 when I found out that this musical was going to be turned into a movie. I grabbed my friend to go see it when it came out in theaters, and I surprisingly liked it. I know there was some criticism about the movie before it officially came out, but I didn't look at, listen to, or pay attention to any of it. I avoided reviews of it and such because I didn't want to spoil myself, so I only really watched the trailer for it. Either way, I watched the movie, went in pretty much completely blind, and I actually liked it the first time I watched it. I'm not sure why or what it was that made me like it so much, but I did. I think I was blinded by my love for the original musical.
However, I did have a look at a lot of the criticism from a lot of the other people who had watched it after it came out, and I couldn't help but agree with a lot of it. It got to the point that now, as you can tell by the title, I don't really like it anymore. I don't hate it as much as other people.
This fucking movie is making me lose my mind.
This fucking goddamn shit of a movie.
But I absolutely do not like it at all. So although it's been years since the movie came out, you think your review is late? Wait in the wings. Try being almost 3 years late. I thought since I love this musical so much, why not do a deep analysis on why the movie is a huge disappointment and does not do the musical justice at all in any way, shape, or form. Now, there's a lot of ways that I could go about this, and there are a lot of ways that other people have gone about this. But I decided to have a look at each of the characters, well, most, I don't have a lot of thoughts on all of them, and talk about how this movie screws all of them over. Not only that, but after I do a dive into each character, I decided that I'm gonna also give some general criticisms about stuff like the directing and the music choices. So buckle up everyone, and let's have a look at the Dear Evan Hansen movie. This is gonna be quite a ride. So I'm going to start off with the main boy himself, Evan, because I think I have the most to say about him. No, I just do. I know I do. I have the most to say about him. Now, like any piece of art, musicals are up for interpretation, and so are the characters. So I know not everyone is going to see Evan the way that I see him, but this is my interpretation. I see Evan as someone who is not a bad guy, not necessarily a good guy, but just a kid. A kid who, though good intentioned, ends up making a lot of very bad decisions and ends up screwing himself over. The musical does a good job at making his mental health issues not an excuse for what he does, but more of an explanation. And I don't think it tries to act like what Evan did is right, but more so just shows that it's an extremely complicated situation that he got himself into. However, a lot of people have thought differently, and the musical has been criticized for this. Some people saying that Evan is a bad person, or some people even call him a sociopath.
The protagonist, Evan Hansen, is a lying piece of shit sociopath. I'm pretty sure Shrek manipulated a family into believing he was best friends with their dead son in order to pretend he had cool parents and a girlfriend. Oh wait, no, Shrek isn't a sociopath, never mind.
And I think the creators of this movie saw this criticism and tried to fix it, but ended up making it so much worse. They try and make Evan seem more innocent, which is not only such a bad idea, but honestly, I don't think that's really necessary. They did this in such a bad way too, by taking away Evan's choices. In the musical, there's a scene where Cynthia and Zoe are arguing at dinner over whether there were any good things about Connor. And Evan, who started probably getting nervous about the arguing, shouts out of nowhere,
"I remember a lot of good things about Connor."
And that's eventually what causes him to go into For Forever, a song where he's basically kind of fantasizing about a perfect day that he had with Connor. Also, before this, he had mentioned that he and Connor would exchange emails, and then later, after the dinner, he's talking with his friend Jared, and suddenly it hits him.
You're gonna want to see our email!
Even though the Murphys never stated that they wanted to see them, Evan works with Jared to create a bunch of fake emails to show to the Murphys. After the song If I Could Tell Her, Evan kisses Zoe out of nowhere. Zoe is clearly taken aback by this, to say the least, but eventually she starts to reciprocate Evan's feelings and they end up getting together. Evan also decides to start the Connor Project, after having a conversation with basically himself, where he decides he doesn't want Connor, and also in a way himself, to be forgotten. The movie changes all these details and makes it in a way where they're all out of Evan's control. Zoe and Cynthia argue like in the musical, but then to stop the argument, Cynthia refers to Evan, asking him if he remembers anything good about Connor. And that's what leads him into For Forever. It's also stated in the scene after the dinner with Evan and Jared that Cynthia requested for Evan to show her the emails between him and Connor. Instead of Evan starting the Connor Project, Alana starts it and asks for Evan to help her with it in a really weird scene that we'll talk about later. Instead of Evan suddenly kissing Zoe after If I Could Tell Her, it's staged as more of a mutual kiss that gets cut off. Then later Zoe is the one who initiates the relationship. I can understand why they made this change for a movie, because If I Could Tell Her is kind of weird, and that kiss at the end kind of makes it weirder. I would be perfectly fine with this specific change if they didn't take away so many of Evan's other choices. The whole point of this musical is that this kid is constantly making these bad decisions and digging himself deeper into this hole. Not only that, but by having Evan make all these choices, it shows that the musical is aware that Evan is doing a bad. I can understand what they're going for here. They're trying to make Evan more sympathetic. But when you take away Evan's choices, not only do you miss the whole point of the musical, but also this just makes Evan a bystander in his own story, and that's just way less compelling. Not only that, but in the movie, he's a lot more quiet and shy, which, yes, can be a depiction of anxiety. But in the original musical, he was a lot more spazzy. He would accidentally say things and shout things and just talk a lot in general, which I liked. It was a good depiction of anxiety while also creating some really funny moments that could help you sort of sympathize and almost connect with Evan.
I'm Zoe.
Yes, no, I know.
You know?
No, I mean, I I seen you play the guitar in jazz band. I love jazz band. I love jazz. We're not all jazz bands. I feel like jazz band jazz? That's so weird, I'm sorry. No, it's just you're breaking up with me, right? That's why you came over, so.
Breaking up with
I know, right? How presumptuous can I get? I don't even know if we're like dating officially or whatever.
Where is my spazzy boy? I also think that having him accidentally say things and shout things really fits into his character in the sense of his anxiety can make him do things he's not proud of or doesn't want to do. It's a crucial part of his character that I feel like is just missing from the movie. Even in his most emotional moments, he's blurting things out of stress.
We failed him!
No, you didn't fail him!
Look, that's what he wrote!
He didn't write it!
We failed him!
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't fail him.
Read the note.
He didn't write it.
They took a great depiction of anxiety and watered it down to something that feels a bit more stereotypical. It feels like the movie version is what most people think social anxiety is like. And yes, this could be a form that anxiety comes in, but it's not the only form. I really liked the sort of unique take that the original musical had on it. Alright, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. Ben Platt as Evan. I'm gonna be honest, guys. Yeah, it's not great, but it's not terrible either. I don't know. I can see a sliver of the original Evan that I love. He's definitely nowhere near as good as he was in the stage musical though, both acting-wise and singing-wise. Acting-wise, it feels like he's trying too hard, but at the same time, it also feels like he's holding back. It just really feels like he's trying really hard to sell his performance with every little motion that he does. But at the same time, I feel like he's holding back because in the stage musical, his performance was just so raw and authentic, and I'm just not getting that same raw emotion in the movie. Singing-wise, he sounds kinda weird. I don't understand. He sounded so good in the musical. What happened? I think part of it is auto-tuning, which, why do you need to auto-tune Ben Platt? He's Ben Platt, just let him sing normally. Look, I get that pretty much all songs that are professionally recorded probably have some auto-tuning to some extent, but Ben Platt is already a good singer. You don't need to go so hard on the auto-tune. It's kind of hard to explain, but maybe if you just listen to the songs, listen to the original songs and then listen to the movie songs and maybe you'll kind of understand what I mean. Now, the true elephant in the room. Do I think he looks too old? Mostly yes, but kind of. It's kind of weird. Sometimes he looks okay and he could pass for a teenager. Maybe looks only slightly older than a teenager. And sometimes he definitely looks way too old. Also in some shots, he just kind of looks bad in general. Why didn't they look at this shot and think, oh hey, he doesn't look that great here. Maybe we should get another take from maybe another angle or something. Or if they did get another take, why didn't the editor see, oh hey, he doesn't look great from this angle. Let's get another angle that he looks better in. Also, we all know that one picture. I can get what they're going for here. Mental breakdowns can be ugly, but this is just too far. You can see even in a poor quality bootleg of the original musical that he wasn't scrunching his face that much. By the way, if you're gonna make fun of the hair, before you do, keep in mind that this is a Jewish afro. Ben Platt is Jewish, just a reminder, and although it's never stated what Evan's religious status or ethnicity is, this hairstyle may have been to imply that he's Jewish, in order to make up for the fact that they took out a line about Jared being Jewish in the original musical.
Hey, so my parents are out of town this weekend, and the last time they used the liquor cabinet was Rosh Hashanah 1997, so we can drink whatever we want.
Now, with that being said, the important thing to do with Evan is to emphasize his youth so that people can understand that this is a young, naive, teenage boy doing all these things. When you cast someone who looks too old, it doesn't come off as that. It comes off as more manipulative and intentional, and it makes Evan look like a grown man who should know what he's doing is wrong. I think this is part of the reason that after the movie came out, there was a lot more criticism about the morality of the musical and Evan, because with Ben Platt looking older, that's the perception people have of the musical. Now, I think Ben Platt's casting could have been made to work if they just casted the rest of the teenagers the same way they casted Ben. Then he wouldn't stick out in such a bad way. But no, they casted people who passed pretty well for teenagers for all the other teenage characters, which makes Ben stick out like a sore thumb. It especially looks bad with scenes of him and Caitlin Dever as Zoe, because Zoe is meant to be Evan's love interest. Also, overall, they just have no chemistry together. So was Ben Platt the worst choice for the role? Maybe not. I don't know, there were probably worse choices they could have gone with, and I can at least somewhat understand why they wanted to cast Ben since he did so well in the original musical. But was he a good choice for the role? No, absolutely not. It's really unfortunate too, because I'm pretty sure the only reason this movie exists is because Mark Platt, Ben's father, is the producer of the film, and they wanted to preserve Ben's performance. I wish there were other reasons they wanted to make this film. Like, I don't know, maybe because fans would be interested in it, I don't know. And honestly, I think it would have been really nice to have someone else play Evan and get their chance in the spotlight like Ben did when he first played Evan. The problem with Heidi, and you will see a trend with this as we go along with the other characters, is that they removed a lot of crucial scenes that had her in them. In the original musical, there are plenty of scenes with Heidi trying to talk to Evan, to connect with him, trying to understand what's going on in his life. But at the same time, she struggles to connect with him as a single mom who goes to school and has to work enough to provide for both her and him. Not only that, but she serves as a humanizing role for Evan. She's a reminder that Evan is a kid who just needed a family, a parental figure, or some form of unconditional love, a love that Heidi provides. The movie takes out a lot of these scenes and dialogue and reduces what's left to the absolute minimum that they can. Not only does this ruin the relationship that was built between Heidi and Evan in the original musical, and not only does this kind of sideline Heidi's emotions in all of this, but also Heidi's arguably most important song, So Big So Small, doesn't have as much impact because Heidi and Evan's relationship doesn't have as much impact because Heidi's less important in the movie. Also, Julianne Moore has none of the heart and raw emotion that Rachel Bay Jones had. So both the combination of the writing and the lackluster acting really turns Heidi into a mediocre character, which is really a shame because she was a pretty compelling character in the original musical. Man, they did Jared so dirty in this movie. Now again, my interpretation of Jared is going to be different than someone else's. In fact, when I first saw this musical, I didn't even really see Jared in this way, but now this is how I see him. I think that he has very strong feelings for Evan, but he also struggles with internalized homophobia, so he uses all these jokes that he makes as a way to cope. Now, this isn't exactly canon in the musical. He never comes out or openly states anything about being queer, but if you really look at it, you can see the implications. Also, yeah, he was the comedic relief, but there was more to him than that. He has a story with Evan. You can see their friendship. You can see that although Jared acts like he doesn't care about Evan, deep down, he really does deeply care about him. You can see the falling out, and you can see why and how these two broke apart. The movie, first of all, has Jared out as gay. I have mixed feelings about this. I do really like the idea of having Jared canonically queer. Yay, canon queer people! But the internalized homophobia added a little bit of spice to Jared's character, a little bit of flavor. And without that, he's a little more bland. Not only that, but having him out kinda sorta turns him into one of those stereotypical gay people who makes gay jokes. Also, it's not great to have the only canonically queer character making all these raunchy, crude jokes. At least with the internalized homophobia, there was a reason for him making those jokes. It was a coping mechanism. Honestly, I would have been more okay with this if they didn't take away a lot of the scenes that were important to Jared's character. He helped Evan with the emails like in the musical, but then after that, he just becomes so irrelevant to the story. There's none of the scenes where Evan starts to neglect their friendship and Jared is clearly upset about it. They don't have a falling out. The closest thing we get to that is a shot of Jared looking visibly upset at a video of Evan and Zoe.
Hi, Editor Eve here to say that they also removed a lot of Jared's lines that made him meaner.
Look, do you want to listen to me, or do you want to have another meltdown like last year in English, when you were supposed to give that speech about Daisy Buchanan, but instead you just stood there staring at your note cards saying, over and over again, like you were having a brain aneurysm. Okay.
They also just make him a lot more soft and less of an asshole in general, and I think that Jared really needs that asshole.
In this movie, Jared is nothing but the comedic relief, which even that is kind of saying a lot because they took out a lot of his iconic lines from the original musical.
Is it weird to be the first person in history to break their arm from jerking off too much? Or do you consider that an honor? Right, one of those secret email accounts. Sure, for sending pictures of your penises to each other. There's nothing unrealistic about the love that one man feels for another. I can't believe you tried to kiss Zoe Murphy on her brother's bed after he died.
And it's not like there wasn't opportunity to do more with Jared here. One of my main problems with the original musical is that they don't have a resolution between Evan and Jared and Evan and Alana. Literally the last interactions Jared and Evan have is their fight in Good For You. It would have been nice if they maybe had a heart-to-heart about everything. I mean, they kind of give a resolution by showing a scene with them together at graduation. Also, Evan sends a video to Jared of Connor playing a song, which, why did they add this if they're not going to include the falling out? Even if they did include the falling out, this would make for a very poor resolution. Like, hypothetically, yes, you would see that they made up by graduation, but how did they make up? One moment they're fighting and now everything's cool? Also, what does sending a video of Connor do? Like, just none of it makes sense to me. Also, this may be just my opinion, but I think this was a missed opportunity to put in Going Viral. In case you didn't know, this was a song that was removed from the original musical. Reasons why Going Viral maybe would be a good idea to be in the movie. 1. Jared gets the solo he deserves. 2. You get a little bit of a look into Jared's character. And 3. I think it would have been maybe a nice way to help Sincerely Me fit a little more into the soundtrack, because Sincerely Me, especially in the movie, kind of sticks out as one of the only upbeat songs in a musical full of ballads. Going Viral, however, has a pretty similar vibe to Sincerely Me, and both songs go really deep into the dark comedy aspect. So with Going Viral in the soundtrack would at least make Sincerely Me not the only song that's like this. Also, it's just a bop. The lyrics would probably need to be changed though because they're kinda dated. Or if you don't want to add Going Viral to the musical, it would have been nice for Jared to at least have a solo, maybe one with similar vibes to Going Viral. Maybe you guys think I'm crazy for this. Maybe you guys think that adding Going Viral or giving Jared a solo in general would be pointless, but I at least think that my idea is a little bit better than the majority of the ideas that the creators went with for the movie. So, Alana is kind of weird to talk about because ever since the first makings of the musical, I'm pretty sure they've had trouble writing Alana and also finding a voice for the character. And I think it kind of shows in the final version of the musical. I see her as sort of a parallel to Evan. She seems to have similar struggles to him, and in the stage musical, she actually has a little moment where she sings a little reprise of Waving Through a Window. Honestly, they did quite a bit with her that I like. They developed her a bit more, and even though they did it in mostly a really weird way, I do like the attempt, and I like the idea of developing her more. However, they do develop her in a really weird way. There's a scene that replaces Disappear where instead of Connor coming in as a ghost and convincing Evan to keep the lies going and start the Connor project, we have a scene with Alana and Evan. They have a bit of a bonding moment where Alana basically talks about how she wants to start the Connor project and is trying to convince Evan to get the Murphy's blessing. Now, this is a good idea on paper. I think it's a good way to give Alana some development. I like the idea of getting Alana and Evan closer because I feel like that was kind of something missing from the original. And I can understand that Disappear wasn't everyone's favorite song. Kinda sad to see it go, but I can understand making this change. However, the way they execute this idea is so weird. They start off talking about the Connor project, and then it kind of turns into Alana kind of explaining to Evan that they're more similar than he may think. To do this, she just asks Evan what medication he takes out of nowhere.
What do you take?
Girl, you don't just ask someone what meds they take. Also, imagine if he didn't take medication. What would that say about you that you think that he needs to take meds? And sure, she ends up being right, but even then, that's private information that you don't just ask someone. This next idea was given by the wonderful Hannah Bailey's. I think that's how you say your name. She suggested that instead of asking what he takes, she says something along the lines of, hey, I know I seem like I have everything all together, but I actually really struggle with anxiety and depression, and I take insert name of medication that she takes here, I don't remember. Sure, it would still be kind of weird, but it would at least give Evan the choice of if he wanted to open up to her or not about that. She goes on talking about how a lot of people are like them, and it eventually leads into a new song that they wrote for the movie, The Anonymous Ones. It's basically a song talking about how she and a lot of other people will hide the struggles that they go through. Now, this could definitely work, but the problem is with the acting and the directing of her character beforehand. I'm going to talk a bit about the acting and the directing later, but one of the problems with Alana specifically is that there's not really any case of her putting up a mask or it slipping in any way. It's so obvious that she's hiding her depression that it kind of defeats the purpose of her character in this movie and the song. It's like, wow, totally wouldn't guess that the girl who acts sad all the time and says everything really sadly has depression. In the musical, you can tell that something was off about her, but her mental health struggles weren't made super clear until the moments where she became more vulnerable. For this song to work, we needed to see more of that happy Alana beforehand. Also, again, having the story play out this way takes away one of Evan's choices, which is not good. If they wanted to develop Alana like this, I think what they could have done instead is have Evan start the Connor project, maybe talk about a bit with Jared, and then Alana overhears this and asks to join in. And then maybe she talks about how she wants to help people like her and Evan, and then they go into how Evan and Alana aren't as different as they may think, and then we get into the song. Now, I want to talk about Alana's confrontation to Evan and the posting of the letter. I think the confrontation could have been better. I like the dialogue here. Alana tells Evan that if he really cared about Connor and the Connor project and helping the Murphys, he would be more dedicated to coming to the meetings and such. She also asks him Did you lie? Did I lie to all these people? Which is good. It's a great way to show what Evan is doing. Not only is he lying, but he's also making people like Alana lie to all these people. However, Alana's confrontation to Evan is so quiet. She literally whispers the "did you lie" line. I think it would have been better if Alana was allowed to show some more emotion here. Alana in general, much like Evan, went from being a lot more loud in the musical to being a lot more quiet in the movie. I get that maybe it could be because it makes more sense for loudness in a live show compared to a movie where it might be a little more weird. But at the same time, can we get more portrayals of anxiety in media that isn't just the shy, quiet type of anxiety? Not only that, but in this version of the story, because Alana is the one who starts the Connor project and basically drags Evan into it, she has less of a reason to blame Evan and be mad at him over this. The posting of the letter in the movie, I have mixed feelings about. For context, Alana starts to get suspicious that Evan is lying about his friendship with Connor, and so Evan, to prove that he isn't lying, sends over the letter that he wrote to himself that the Murphys mistook for Connor's suicide note, and frames it as just that. In the musical, Alana posts this note because, according to her, this is what people need to see, and it will also help reach the goal for their fundraiser. She completely posts this without any permission from Evan or the Murphys, and Evan is even practically begging her not to post it and to delete it once she does.
You need to take it down, please!
This is just such a bad move on Alana's part. You don't just post someone's suicide note without permission from family or friends. Even in the context of the fact that this isn't a suicide note, that was a letter full of Evan's personal feelings. That was meant to be between him and his therapist or anyone he personally wanted to share it with. Posting that online is like posting someone's private diary entry, which is just not okay. In the movie, they make her a bit more sympathetic while doing this. They have her sing a piece from her song to serve as a bit more motivation other than to reach the goal for the fundraiser. It feels here more like she genuinely cares about the Connor Project, what it stands for, the memorial, and helping others with their mental health. She also seems like she feels guilty about posting it, unlike in the musical. Now, I do like how they try and explain why she posts the suicide note and give her some proper motivations for it. However, I feel like one of the points of the musical is that everyone messes up and does messed up things. And by doing this, it kind of takes that sort of message away a bit. The musical did a really good job at showing how messed up this thing that she did was, and the movie kind of glosses over a little bit. Also, earlier in the movie, they kind of cut off the song so that they could put the rest of it in this part, and it's just a really weird cutoff, and I think it would have been better if they just did like some kind of full reprise. So yeah, there are some things they did with Alana that I like, and some things they did that I don't like. I think Connor suffers from a similar problem to Jared and Heidi, where they just remove a lot of the scenes that he had that made him more significant to the story. In the original, after Connor dies, he comes back for a few scenes with Evan. In these scenes, he's a figment of Evan's imagination, and he acts as a bit of a guide for Evan throughout the story. This really goes to show how much Evan was struggling and how bad he was having it. I mean, think about it. He was struggling so much, he had to conjure up a dead kid to help him. Not only that, but there's a scene that's very crucial to me, which is the "Did you fall" scene. I doubt that there's many people who don't know what I'm talking about here, but for context, so Evan starts off this show with a cast. He broke his arm. He claims that it's because he fell out of a really tall tree. In this scene, Connor, who is acting as Evan's conscience at this point, is basically confronting Evan about this and explains that Evan didn't fall that day. He let go. he tried to take his own life. It was such a compelling way to reveal what happened. How does the movie do this? They show Evan falling and hitting the ground a bunch of times, and then later he reveals what he did to his mom. And there's also a scene in Words Fail where they actually show what happened, but at this point, it's useless. Constantly showing Evan falling and hitting the ground and reminding us about what happened loses the impact of the reveal. There's a reason the story takes place after the attempt, and there's a reason that it's not really talked about much how he broke his arm. And anytime Evan does talk about it, he only talks about it because he's asked. I also feel that much like Heidi, Connor also serves a little bit as a humanizing role for Evan because of all these scenes with him. Taking away these scenes with Connor reduces him to nothing more than a plot point, and takes away the already little significance that he had in the story. It's pretty telling that this is the Connor section, and I spent the majority of it talking about Evan and how he basically impacted Evan. I'm gonna group all the Murphys together, except Connor, because as you can tell by my Connor section, I don't really have a lot to say about the Murphys. My biggest complaint about them is the acting. The acting in the original musical was so good, and it got you so emotionally invested in the characters. It also felt a lot more realistic. The acting in the movie is a lot more bland, and as a result, the Murphys are a bit more bland as well. Although there are some good moments, and I think that the Murphys did the best when it came to the acting in the movie, it just doesn't compare to the original musical. This is an issue that basically extends to the entire cast, and I do really want to talk about the acting, but that'll have to wait for later, so hold for that. We'll get there when we get there. Larry being a stepdad instead of a biological father doesn't really do anything to me. I don't get the point of the change. Other than that, there's nothing else that I really want to talk about that I haven't said before or don't want to talk about later. So congratulations, Murphys. You guys get to be the kings and queens of fine in this film. You guys are fine. So, all the characters from this show were basically butchered in the movie. Fine, whatever. Other parts of the movie could save it a bit, right? Like the music. How's the music? Not great. The main issues for me are the songs that either got replaced or just cut entirely. First, let's talk about the original opener for the musical. Anybody have a map? The movie does not open with this song, and instead opens with what was the second song in the original musical, Waving Through a Window. Not only did Anybody Have a Map do a better job at establishing the home lives of the Hansens and the Murphys, which was one of the problems I had with the Murphys, is that there was no scenes establishing what their home life was like before Connor died. But it also did a better job at establishing this musical as a musical. With Waving Through a Window as the opener now, Evan is the only one singing for about the first 20 to 30 minutes, which makes it kind of weird when other characters start singing. Not only that, but in the original, we actually got to see a scene of Evan acting awkward and anxious before we got into Waving Through a Window. So we were basically seeing what he was singing about beforehand. With this song now as the opener, it loses a bit of its meaning because we don't get to see him acting awkward and anxious until afterwards. Next song they got rid of, Disappear. Well, they didn't completely get rid of it, they replaced it with another song, the anonymous ones. I kind of already talked about this before, but basically, I kind of like the song more out of context than I do within the context of the movie. Disappear is also just kind of better to me in general. Honestly, I think the only reason that I like this song as much as I do is because I could really relate to it. Next song, To Break in a Glove. I actually don't really care about them getting rid of this song. And I actually like what they did with the scene that replaces it. I don't hate To Break in a Glove as much as other people do, but I can 100% understand getting rid of this song. Next song, Good For You. This is one of the worst decisions the makers of the movie could have ever made. How do you take away the one song that calls out your protagonist for the things he's doing wrong, especially in a musical that already has a lot of criticism about the morality of it and its protagonist? Not only that, but this song is such a bop too, and with this song cut, Jared has no solo and basically no singing parts. Let my boy Jared sing! Yeah, it's kind of a similar situation with Alana because they took away her very few singing parts, but at least they made up for that with giving her a solo. Even Connor got a solo to make up for the fact that Disappear was removed. Speaking of which, let's talk about that solo. So they added a new song for Connor called A Little Closer, and it's not half bad. The song itself is fine. It's pretty repetitive and generic, and it doesn't really tell us anything about Connor, but I still kind of like it. What I really like about it is what they do with this song in the movie. Evan finds a list of Connor's favorite books in one of his childhood yearbooks, and he starts reading the books listed. He also contacts and tries to talk to a bunch of people who knew Connor to try and get a bunch of stories about him as an attempt to get to know him. He also sends a video to the Murphys of Connor playing the guitar and singing this song, which is nice. Though I don't get why he also sent it to Alana and Jared. Also, kind of weird to send this video by mailing a thumb drive. If I were to just get a random thumb drive in the mail, I would not put that in my computer. I ain't risking getting a hack or a virus. But anyways, I like the idea of Evan trying to make up for what he did in this way. And it's really nice to see the things that he only talked about doing in the stage musical. I guess it's kind of the opposite of Anonymous Ones, where I like this song more within the context of the movie than out of context. The songs that were left from the stage musical are just not as good as the originals. I think the main issue is the auto-tune. Everyone just sounds kind of weirdly robotic, and it just kills a lot of the songs for me. Now, I don't know about a lot of these people's singing careers, but I do know that Hollywood likes to do this thing a lot where they'll cast people who can't sing and just auto-tune them to make them sound good. I don't know if that's what happened here because I know Ben Platt can sing and the movie does not do his singing voice justice, but it's a possibility. Again, I don't know a lot of these actors' singing careers, like I don't know Caitlin Devers or Julianne Moore's, so who knows? Either way, the autotune just really makes a lot of these songs not enjoyable to listen to. There's also Only Us. They changed the scene to make this the point where Evan and Zoe start dating, as opposed to the musical where this was the point where they kind of wanted to start focusing on each other more. This isn't a bad idea on paper, but the problem is Only Us doesn't work as a getting together song. If they were going to make this change, they needed to change the lyrics a bit to make it work as a getting together song. However, they don't change the lyrics, so Zoe still sings as if they're already dating, which makes the scene kind of confusing. It wouldn't even be that hard of a fix. You'd only have to change a couple of lyrics and you're good to go. Not only that, but starting their relationship so late in the game at this point makes their relationship feel really underdeveloped and pointless. Overall, the movie soundtrack just doesn't do the stage musical soundtrack justice. At best, it's about on par with the original musical, maybe only slightly worse. And at worst, it's full of just a bunch of poor ideas that really brings the soundtrack down and just makes me wish I was listening to the original instead. Honestly, a lot of the issues with this movie may be because of the directing. It feels like the director didn't know how to do a movie musical, and the movie really suffers because of this. The biggest problems are in the songs. It's pretty clear that the director didn't know what to do during them. A lot of the blocking and choreography is just people standing, sitting, or walking while singing. This works fine for a stage musical because the appeal of a stage musical is that you're watching these actors perform, and typically stage performances are more abstract. In a movie, however, you need more visual interest than just pointing a camera at someone and watching them sing for a whole 4 to 5 minutes. In For Forever, give us shots of Evan and Connor running around chasing each other like kids. Show them laying in a field looking at the clouds, or show them climbing a tree together. I don't know, just something more than just Evan singing to the Murphys at the dinner table for the majority of it. Sure, they have a few shots like this. They have a shot of Evan running, and then they show Connor helping Evan up after he falls, but I want more. I want more. When people aren't just standing, sitting, or walking while singing, they're doing something that doesn't really make that much sense. For example, in Requiem, there's a scene of Zoe driving a car and she's speeding up until all of a sudden she hits a red light, so she slams on the brakes really hard. This never made sense to me and it just felt weird. There's also You Will Be Found, where there's a bunch of videos of people singing the song. I think these are meant to be social media posts, and they eventually form into a picture of Connor's face. It's so funny when I think about it. Also, his best friend died. You won't believe what he did next. I can't believe that's actually a thing in the movie. I think this is privated now, but there was once a video of someone talking about this movie saying that it should have been animated. And honestly, I think that would solve a lot of these problems. There's a reason the animatics for this musical posted on YouTube are so popular. Animation allows you to do things visually that you just can't get away with in live action. Things I think this movie could have used. Side note, but if I had any drawing or animation skills, I would love to fully animate the entirety of Dear Evan Hansen and Be More Chill. But since I don't have any drawing or animation skills, I may just spend the rest of my life with a head full of ideas for animatics that I'll never get to make. There's also just a lot of weird directional choices that were made in general. In the stage musical, there's a scene where Connor is trying to give Evan his letter back after finding it on the printer, and this is what leads to them having a little conversation together. In the movie, Connor kind of just starts talking to Evan out of nowhere, and then he still finds the letter later on in the scene, so that just kind of felt weird to me. And if I could tell her, they have Evan and Zoe circle each other around his kitchen island, which is what happens in horror movies when a serial killer is trying to kill their victims. This song was already weird enough, and then they go and do this. They also flash back to scenes of an old-looking Ben Platt staring from the distance at a very teenage passing Caitlin Dever, and it's just not good. I know I said I wanted flashbacks, but if you're gonna do flashbacks in a song like this, in order for it to work, you need someone who passes as a teenager playing Evan so that it doesn't come off as creepy. There's a lot more of these small, weird directional choices. But I think you get the point. Another issue I have with the directing here is the acting. As I said before, in the original musical, the acting is phenomenal. All the emotions feel real and genuine. When characters were sad and breaking down, you believed it. They would have little sobbing fits. You can hear the devastation in their voice. When characters were angry and were arguing, they felt angry and they would talk over each other like in an actual argument. The acting is one of the most important things in this musical, and I think that the acting can make or break it. Not only that, but the stage musical was really funny. They don't go as deep into the dark humor as something like Heather's, but the dark humor is played really well, and it adds some lightheartedness to the really dark situation. In the movie, no one has that same level of emotion. For the most part, the way everyone says their lines is just bland and robotic. It's so rare to see much emotion, and even the most emotional performances don't reach the same level of raw emotion as in the original musical.
You really know I'm such a burden. I'm the worst thing that ever happened to you. I ruined your life.
The one good thing that's ever happened to me, Evan. Sorry, I can't give you anything more than that.
And I know that I'm a burden. I'm the worst thing that ever happened to you, and I just ruined your life, okay?
No, you are the best thing. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Sorry, I can't give you anything more than that.
Not only that, but everything is just a lot more serious. Part of this is due to the writing and taking away a lot of the jokes from the original show. And part of it is everyone saying everything so seriously and so dramatically. Scenes that were funny in the original musical aren't funny anymore because of this.
Evan, right?
Evan.
That's your name?
Yes, it is. It's Evan. Sorry.
Evan, right? That's your name?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, it's Evan. I'm sorry.
It's really unfortunate because I really like the comedy in the original show. Not only that, but this makes Sincerely Me stick out in such a bad way. Not only did they remove pretty much all of the light-hearted songs, but now in a movie where everything is so serious and dramatic, it's pretty jarring to all of a sudden get this happy-go-lucky number. Sure, there are maybe a couple of moments of good acting, but overall it just doesn't hold up compared to the stage musical. I put this in the directing section because I think this is an issue with the director and not the actors. Because everyone acts in this way, I believe that this is the way the director wanted them to act, but it just doesn't work. Honestly, I think the directional choices for this movie is one of the movie's biggest detriments. This really brings the movie down, especially compared to the original musical with better acting and better directing. As a fan of the original musical of Dear Evan Hansen, and as someone who saw a lot of potential in this movie, the Dear Evan Hansen movie is just so disappointing for so many reasons. They ruined a majority of the characters, the music, and the directing isn't all that great either. What makes it more disappointing is the fact that it's not like Dear Evan Hansen didn't have things that they could have improved upon in this film. There were problems that they could have fixed with this musical, but the developers either didn't bother or they made the problem worse. It really feels here like they just made a bunch of bad choices without thinking of the implications of making those choices.
Promise me you'll think about the implications!
Okay, you were right. I didn't think about the implications. Oh my god, I didn't think about it!
It's so unfortunate because I really do believe that this could have been a masterpiece if they just were more careful with the choices they made when adapting this musical into a movie. Unfortunately, we'll never get to see a great movie version of Dear Evan Hansen. The closest thing we'll ever get is the animatics and the bootlegs that are online. If you have only seen the movie, I highly encourage you to please give the stage musical a try. It's so much better than the movie, and the movie does not do the stage musical justice. If you do end up seeing the stage musical and you still don't like it after that, or if you have already seen both and you don't like Dear Evan Hansen, then that's fine. I could understand. But if you've only seen the movie and you never wanted to give the musical a try because of it, I highly encourage you, please give it a try. And now that I'm done with this video, I'm gonna go watch the original stage musical for the 100th time and try and forget that this disappointment of a movie exists. Unless I want to make fun of the movie with someone, because that's the most enjoyment I'll get out of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this really long video. I think this is going to be my longest one yet. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see more videos like this, feel free to check out the other videos on my channel. And subscribe if you want to subscribe.
And until then, I'll see you guys next time in the next video. Bye!